From the campus of the University of Kentucky, you're listening to Behind the Blue. I'm Cody Kaiser with UK Strategic Communications.
When you are so vulnerable in that time in your life, and it is just fight or flight and what you're doing, everything else around you, I am sure, is just a total blur. The idea to have somebody come into your life that's new during that time, to build that relationship and have your child who is so vulnerable connect with another group is very intimidating. And I'm not sure if back then, if the roles were reversed, if I would have been able to trust. But I am incredibly grateful to the families that did. And I am incredibly proud of the Adoptive Family Program. That is by far, the numbers are great and the main event is great. But really, the most important thing that DanceBlue does, in my opinion, is the constant touch points with the families throughout the year. That is the heart of everything.
The special sauce in DanceBlue is that, hey, it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from or what talents you have. Come as you are, be a part of these families' lives, to whatever capacity they need us to or want us to, or whatever they feel like is going to be most supportive in that situation. And let's use all of our talents to make that happen. And it's that relationship that drives it. And I think that's the most important thing. And then the money raised, I think, is a side byproduct of how strong that relationship is.
Each year in the spring, hundreds of UK students gather to stand for an entire day to support the patients in the DanceBlue Kentucky Children's Hospital Hematology Oncology Clinic. This year, DanceBlue will celebrate its 20th annual marathon. Students work all year to raise funds and share the mission to spread joy. On March 29th and 30th, they will fill the floor of historic Memorial Coliseum for 24 hours to participate in the No Sitting, No Sleeping Marathon. In 2006, the very first DanceBlue Marathon raised $123,323.16. The event has grown larger every year, becoming one of the greatest traditions at the University of Kentucky. In 2024, the organization raised $2.1 million, breaking the record for highest fundraising total. For 20 years, DanceBlue has strived to spread joy to those fighting, to persevere in memory of the lives lost, and to celebrate every victory until the battle against pediatric cancer is won. On this episode of Behind the Blue, two UK alumni who were previous members of DanceBlue's leadership committee share their thoughts and reflections on the program. Amberlee Isabella, an entrepreneur and business owner in New York State, and Alex Wade, a Lexington native and local physician, both talk about the impact DanceBlue had on both their personal lives and professional careers, the importance of community service and support, and the emotional connections that have defined DanceBlue and the unique family it has created. Amberlee Isabella is our guest. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us on Behind the Blue. The first thing I kind of want to ask about is your time here at UK as a student. Tell us what brought you here. And if I remember correctly, you did not come to visit UK when you applied. Is that correct? You just applied and then you just got accepted and came here, correct?
That is correct. I was a cheerleader for many years, so the University of Kentucky was on my radar for a long time. And I knew what I wanted to study, which was interior design. And there are not a lot of D1 schools in the South that offer accredited interior design programs. So my options were limited, and I decided to apply to the University of Kentucky on the last day, the application. I remember being in high school and writing very quickly that entry essay and hitting submit, and nothing made me happier to see that acceptance letter come through.
Now, where did you grow up? Where were you when you applied?
I grew up in central Connecticut in a small town called Hebron of about 20,000 folks. And I was one of 8 attendees from the state of Connecticut to the University of Kentucky that year.
So I'm guessing that your time here, like when you first arrived on campus as a freshman, it was a bit of culture shock coming from the Northeast to somewhere that was in the South, different climate, different everything.
One of the things that I realized very quickly is that a lot of people knew each other, and I was a little bit on the outside. But one of the really beautiful things about all being freshmen is that everybody does want to get to know each other. They do want to connect. And there's so many programs and opportunities on campus, those first couple of weeks, especially to get people acquainted. And that's how I really found my place very quickly. Thankfully, through my lived experience of my grandmother being born and raised in Valdosta, spending a lot of time in South Carolina growing up, I was not afraid to venture out to the SEC for college.
I've been to Valdosta, Georgia. It's one of the random places in the South that I've actually been through, at least. You kind of fall into a category of student who, there are a lot of students who come to start their university journey and experience, and they don't know what they want to be necessarily, or they have sort of an idea. They come here and they take some classes and they look into some different options, and maybe their perception changes of what they thought they were going to be versus what they actually decide that they're going to stay in school and finish and get a degree in. But you, from the start, knew what you wanted to do in design and interior design. Talk to me a little bit about that kind of experience and where your mind was with that, and kind of what the process was like once you got here, how that paid off for you.
Yeah, sure. I knew I wanted to be a designer for as long as I can remember. I grew up in a 200-year-old house in Connecticut. My parents were very passionate about early American design, and that was just something that was intrinsic. And I don't remember a time when that's not what I wanted to be. I don't have a frame of reference of everything else. I remember being in 8th grade and having to lie and write down like meteorologist, astronaut, and something else in like a school report because you had to pick 3.
Sure.
I'm like, there's only one.
Sure. Yep.
I want to be an interior designer.
When
and
you know, you know. Yep.
When you know, you know. And I was very fortunate that the University of Kentucky, the program when I went through school, there wasn't like prerequisites that you had to take around interior design. You got to first, dive in and start studying interior design. So that was really great for me because I did have that focus. I do have a lot of empathy for those that don't exactly know what they want to do either. And I always encourage students that I speak to just dive in, because sometimes the process of elimination is just as helpful as doing the things that you know that you want to do.
Now, while you were here, you became involved in student organizations, and specifically you became involved with DanceBlue. And how did that manifest, and like, how were you introduced to DanceBlue and then kind of stepped into that world?
Yeah, so I was probably the Greekest non-Greek that you ever met on campus. I was involved in a lot of different activities, but I was not in the Greek organization. And I participated my sophomore year in what was called the Emerging Leadership Institute, ELI, on campus. But that was a wonderful experience because at that moment, I was extremely overprogrammed. I was doing all kinds of different things, and I was getting this very specific mentorship with a very specific group of people on campus. And it made me ask the question, what legacy do I want to leave on campus? What impact can I have that can be lasting? And I was very purposefully looking for something to dive into, looking for an opportunity to dedicate my extra time during the rest of my collegiate career at Kentucky. And the opportunity presented itself in the form of Susanna Denemy and Jennifer Minear having an afternoon meeting seeking student leaders on campus to discuss the possibility of creating a dance marathon modeled after Penn State's Dawn to benefit pediatric cancer. And I remember that meeting in the student center. Meeting in the student center, and Jennifer told the story of her son, Jarrett. And I had never met Jennifer before. I was familiar with Susanna on campus, but I didn't have a relationship with her. And it stopped me in my tracks because when those two women come to you and say that they need help building something, you listen. It is a call of action that was impossible for me to turn away from. And 20 years later, it's a call of action that I still listen to. And it's very deep in my heart. Something resonated that evening in speaking with them. And Jarrett's story and the legacy that he left, there was nothing that was going to stop me from, putting everything that I possibly could towards that effort.
So you were involved at the ground level as this was starting to take shape. What were some of your roles that and it's interesting to ask you this because there are a lot of students that over the years that I have talked to or could talk to who would say, well, when I was my first year, I was part of a student organization that had a team and I got selected to be on the team, or I took part in a mini marathon, or maybe and then after that, I was on, some aspect of the leadership team and then worked my way up to like overall chair or media relations or something like that. But this was at a point with you where you were probably everybody who was involved was probably wearing multiple hats at that point to just say like, we're just all going to do this to get this done. And we are kind of defining this as we go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What you just described is a true testament to DanceBlue and how many different ways now you can get engaged, how it can come across your life, whether it's mini marathons or a brother and sister, or, there's so many different stories. But yes, my story is a little bit different. So we started planning for the first DanceBlue in 2005. Our first event, our first marathon was in 2006. And there was a group between 5 and 8 of us that worked with Susanna and Jennifer to really carve out what we thought this could possibly be and how we wanted to approach it. Dawn was our model, but we knew we wanted to make something that was very unique and specific to the University of Kentucky, our student body. In those early days, even before we had a leadership team or anything, it was just outlining, brainstorming, figuring out what it could be. And then Susanna and Jennifer led the first round of leadership interviews for students. And at that time, I had applied to be the overall chair. And I was not selected as the 2006 overall chair of DanceBlue. A woman by the name of Emily Pfeiffer was selected for that. And at first, I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed. I was like, I feel like I could do that. But then I met Emily and I was like, oh, wow, I know why Emily was selected. And she is another woman that I will follow fearlessly and be able to bring this event to life. So meeting Emily, hearing her story, Emily's father was battling cancer and did pass away during our time of DanceBlue. And I actually lost my grandmother during that time too. And we were very close in figuring out what the vision of DanceBlue was and to make sure that we kept the children and their families at the center point of everything that we did. That's where everything started. And that was the nucleus of which we built everything around, was supporting the children and their families and building this event to ensure that as many people involved as possible could be involved, because we were acutely aware that we would be leaving soon. And Jennifer and Susanna would remain, of course, but we had to create a structure and a way and excitement around participation that was effectively rendered it non-negotiable, that you had to be part of the event. In 2006, I was named as the dancer programming chair, and my job was essentially programming all of the hours for the event, designing the event, and what everybody would be doing at every given point, as well as the line dance that everybody performs on stage. And Emily and I together choreographed that very first line dance that we taught at DanceBlue in 2006.
The event happens in 2006, and you're there at that moment. The buy-in from campus It's big. It makes an impact. After the event's over, I mean, did you and the rest of the committee, I mean, did you have a moment where you looked back and you thought, this seemed like it was going to happen, but we weren't sure what was going to happen with this, and we've really helped create something here that has a potential to be lasting?
So a famous story of DanceBlue 2006 is that Susanna and particularly Jennifer really thought everybody was going to leave overnight. We as students knew that that was not going to be the case, but we had a little shy of just 200 dancers that first year in Memorial. We knew that they were going to stay. We did know that, and yes, there was certainly, when we rose our very modest number up on that first year, we were very proud. We were very proud of that and how far we had come. But I would be lying if I didn't say, when I looked up at that number, I thought immediately, we can do better. And I always knew that DanceBlue would be successful as long as the children and the families remained the center point of the organization, and that the organization was not just viewed as a single event, as a dance marathon. When we wrote our mission and vision statements, a year-long fundraising event that culminates with a no sitting, no sleeping dance marathon to support children and their families. It's that everyday support, and it's that research for the future. And that, to me, it made sense. And also, to looking back, it was also perfect timing for the university in looking for something else besides sports, besides Greek life, to rally around. The University of Kentucky at that point was missing a shared vision around philanthropy, I believe. And there are a lot at that time, and still are, so many different amazing philanthropic efforts. But DanceBlue is unique in that pediatric cancer is unique in that it does not discriminate between your race, your socioeconomic status. So it is a unique opportunity that folks can see themselves and want to help those children and their families.
You stayed involved the rest of your college career with DanceBlue. How did your involvement help shape you, do you think, as a person, and maybe also kind of influence your academic path and your career path? I mean, as you kind of move through this and you're involved in this planning for this, you're getting real world experience in a big event and a big structure. Do you feel like you took lessons from that and kind of were able to apply it academically, and then also when you got out of school and moved into your career?
Absolutely. DanceBlue, coupled with my undergraduate studies in design, allowed me to be, I believe, a really strong problem solver and an excellent strategist to be able to connect the dots. Both experiences also gave me the rigor to push more. And even when the tank feels empty, to keep pushing if you believe in the vision. Those experiences are my most valued and treasured outside of being a wife and a mother. They just hit me to my core. And that is why, I continue to show up each year and try to grow my involvement in new and in different ways, and trying to find small ways to contribute that are unique that I bring to the table.
I wanted to ask about that. If you come back each year for the event, it is a special kind of group, a shared experience among each year's team that kind of becomes this family over the years that grows, and people come back. And I spoke with Alex Wade, who talked about being able to bring his kids for the event to kind of see what goes on, and how it still pays forward in his life as an influence, as a physician, in the type of care that he gives, and how he kind of moves through his personal and professional life. And it's really changed him in a lot of fundamental ways. Do you feel like that the experience like changed you, and like I was saying, you've come back, over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm proud to have been to 19 out of the 20 dance marathons. I've always made it a priority to travel back, whether I was living in Atlanta or living in New York. The only time I didn't come back was when I was 7.5 months pregnant with my son, and it was just a little too much for me at that moment. But I did watch very proudly, remotely during that year. And my experience with DanceBlue and working with other student leaders and seeing student leaders evolve, there are so many who are wonderfully in the medical profession that I have so much respect for, and also who have gone into philanthropy. And as a designer and an alumni of DanceBlue, I I felt at some points on the outside of that. But even though I didn't pursue the medical field or philanthropy, the work that DanceBlue does stays with me every day and comes out in how I lead my own small team in my small business, and to make sure that we keep philanthropy supporting others, providing grace in others every day. So it is a core value.
Tell me a little bit about your professional journey. We spoke before we started recording. The last time that we had talked was many years ago in Atlanta when we did an interview for academic recruitment, and you were working for a design firm in Atlanta. You told me you since had moved to New York, but now you have you've moved out of that and you have your own journey that you've been on with your own business.
Yeah, so I spent 12 years, first in Atlanta and then in New York with a architecture and design firm called Gensler. By training, I'm a retail designer and brand strategist. While I was at Gensler, my mom had an idea for a candle company. And that idea was, she thought, very passionate about dachshunds. We love our animals in our family. My mom said, if there was a dachshund candle, I'd buy it. And I wonder what it would smell like. What would the breed of a dachshund smell like? So very famously in June of 2015, she sent me an email and said, what do you think about my candle idea? And I said, I'll think about it. I was 8 years into my design career. I worked at my dream firm. I was working towards my dream job there. And I loved it. I really loved what I did. But she ordered a couple $100s worth of candle supplies. And when I came home on the weekend, she's like, we're going to learn how to make candles. And Cody, this is a classic example of escalation of commitment. And, we learned how to make candles, and then we got really good at making candles. And then it was designing this candle and designing that candle. And for me, I was really attracted to this new idea of storytelling through fragrance. I had been a storyteller through the built environment for a long time. And when you create a product that is small, like a candle, you have the opportunity to get like pretty darn close to perfection, which is when you create a built environment in a space. If you squint and kind of look to the side and it still kind of looks like what you thought it was going to, like, you've done a good job. So it was a new opportunity to try something, and it took off. We did lots of pop-ups around New York City, and it finally came to a point where I had the opportunity in my life to be able to take the leap and pursue entrepreneurship. So in 2019, right before COVID, I left Gensler to pursue scripted fragrance full time.
That is fantastic. That's really fantastic. So as an entrepreneur and as a business person, you've been able to incorporate Help for DanceBlue into the work that you do with your candle company, Scripted Fragrance.
Yes, that is correct. So we're very proud to have created a custom candle for DanceBlue. 35% of the proceeds go back to benefit DanceBlue. And that is a passion project that I'm so excited about, because when small businesses thrive, we're able to give more money back to the community. Our candles are designed in-house. We print our own glassware, and we pour everything ourselves out of our historic studio. And we're best known for our reusable rocks glass candles. So when you've finished burning your candle, you have a drinking glass afterwards that features whatever you love. So in the case of DanceBlue, it is a beautiful commemorative DanceBlue glass. And as our alumni grow older and you're looking for different mementos and things to remind you of DanceBlue each day, we worked with the leadership team to create a beautiful fragrance that was inspired by Jarrett's legacy. And the description on the candle reads, "Jarrett's legacy, a flame so bright, for 24 hours in Kentucky we stand with all our might. Through DanceBlue hope takes flight, till the battle is won, we hold each other tight." We're all about celebrating what you love through fragrance. And this was a really beautiful opportunity to be able to share where we excel in and bring more awareness to the cause.
That is wonderful. When you are able to come back, you're not only coming back for the event and to see current students or alumni who you've known over the years, but you're also interacting with the families that are either were involved at some point or still involved with DanceBlue and have had children who are or were patients at the oncology clinic. Do you feel like you're able to, like, especially for families who, this is something that is overwhelming and they've just gotten a diagnosis for their child and it's all kind of coming at them at once. Have you had any experiences where you've been able to meet some of those families and talk to them and kind of give them some reassurance as far as at least this aspect of it is concerned, as far as like, this organization is here to help. They're here to help provide resources and help you through this experience and to know that you're not alone?
Yes, there are a lot. I've had the opportunity to speak with families at different stages of their cancer journeys throughout the years. And one of the things that I am most proud of is how our adoptive family program has grown, and how when children or their families are facing this for the first time, or unfortunately again, that DanceBlue has now a body of work over the past 20 years that they feel like they can come to us quicker. When we were first starting out, they took a chance on us. And when you are so vulnerable in that time in your life, and it is just fight or flight and what you're doing, everything else around you, I am sure, is just a total blur. The idea to have somebody come into your life that's new during that time, to build that relationship and have your child who is so vulnerable connect with another group is very intimidating. And I'm not sure if back then, if the roles were reversed, if I would have been able to trust. But I am incredibly grateful to the families that did. And I am incredibly proud of the adoptive family program. That is by far, the numbers are great and the main event is great. But really, the most important thing that DanceBlue does, in my opinion, is the constant touch points with the families throughout the year. That is the heart of everything. It's the engine that makes everything go, is the event itself, is the marathon, is the mini marathon. But it's those moments that actually don't get the cameras that are the most impactful, and how that program has grown, and how families, when they are diagnosed, they're immediately introduced to DanceBlue by the clinic staff as a trusted resource, is by far the greatest compliment that we could ever receive.
That is well said. If you had a chance to speak to this year's DanceBlue student leaders and also to the participants, is there anything specifically that you feel like you would tell them or want to impress upon them?
I had the opportunity last year to speak on stage. Jennifer asked me to go up there at the last minute at a portion in the program that is a tremendously challenging portion of the program. And if I'm being totally honest, in that moment, I was like, this isn't my moment. This is not for me to say anything. But when Jennifer asks you to do something, you do it. And I didn't tell Jennifer what I was going to say. She just trusted me in that moment. And after that moment, she said that is what they needed to hear in that moment. And what I said was, what is important is that every day you work to show up for DanceBlue. This experience will end and you will leave, but take what you're feeling right now and lean into the moment to show up when you're no longer here, because that is what it's all about. Sometimes you just have to show up. It doesn't mean you have to show up with thousands of dollars every year. It doesn't mean you have to show up and bring, a pack of 10 of your former alumni to feel like you're making an impact. It doesn't mean you need to buy X. It doesn't mean you need to go to this event and spend it. I said the same thing a few times, forgive me. But a lot of people don't show up and they stop showing up. So that's what I believe is really important. It was that moment was really hard for me, Cody. It was really hard. It was after what we share a memorial slideshow with the kids that we've lost. And in that moment, I was standing off to the side and I had my own son with me. And he was under 1. He hadn't yet had his birthday yet. Yeah, I traveled with Avalon, and he was 8 months old. I handed Avalon to Doug, Jennifer's husband, to hold as I'm asked to go up and address everybody in Rupp Arena, and it was very, very humbling. It was a very humbling experience to look back on your own son, who is thankfully healthy, and to be able to look to the side and see everybody who is hurting and then be asked to deliver a message that will resonate with students. Listen, we all, after you leave the University of Kentucky, everybody travels their own path and everybody's life circumstances will be different. And what you can give back and what you contribute will be different. But if you can find your own ways to show up and continue to be impactful, you're still doing your job.
How old is your son now?
He is 22 months old.
Wow. I just think that's really, really fantastic that you've been able to bring him and him kind of grow up and be a part of that. The lessons that it will impart to him. I hear that resonating from a lot of different places, people who've been able to bring their kids to be a part of the event, and also, take part in other things and become leaders at a young age, whether it's with mini marathons or mini fundraisers, things like that throughout the year, that it really makes such an impact, not just to current and former UK students, but also to their families, and it spreads from there. And I just think that that's really a tremendous thing too. And it really is a testament to the power of the work that's going on with DanceBlue.
Yeah, and I think what you bring up there as well, Cody, the mini marathons and how that has taken off. I'm not going to get the exact numbers right from last year to this year, but they have grown tremendously. And the power of mini marathons for DanceBlue, for the University of Kentucky, is such a powerful thing and such a beautiful thing to be able to bring into students' lives this idea of being part of something bigger and supporting someone other than yourselves. It's really a remarkable thing that is only possible because of the past 20 years. No matter what you do out of the gate, there is no way with unlimited funds you would not be able to execute that and inspire that. What that is a testament to are the student leaders year after year reinventing, rethinking, retooling, and not being complacent or status quo in what they're doing. That is a true testament to student leaders evolving, because it can't be lost on anybody as well that the leadership of DanceBlue does a full over change every leadership team every 2 years, because it's typically reserved for elderclassmen, either, junior, senior, fifth year. So every 2 to 3 years, you basically have like a whole new group coming in and leading that. What other business and organization
That's very true.
grows to the point to be able to do that and to think about handing over the documents and keeping clear records and file? And yes, there are amazing staff and faculty that help steer the ship, and Susanna and Jennifer and Doug and Mark that are always, always there for us. And now Marcy and her team and her team as well. But what other organization keeps it trucking in that way so strong than DanceBlue?
That's very true. Very true. Is there anything else that I haven't asked about, or anything else that you want to mention or reiterate? So
when Susanna retired, Jennifer came to me and said, what should we do for Susanna's retirement? And she had already gotten artwork and things. And I was just like, I have no idea. So I was talking and I was brainstorming with my mom and with one of my best friends who works in philanthropy at UK. And she's like, well, Susanna is all about philanthropy and scholarship. Why don't you work to create a scholarship in her name? So after Susanna retired, we surprised her with the Susanna Denamine DanceBlue Spirit of Philanthropy Scholarship Fund. We started a fund for that, and it's designed to be given to a student either undergoing treatment, a survivor, or their a family member is undergoing treatment, or a family member of a cancer survivor. Because one of the most amazing things about today is that more kids are surviving than ever, and more siblings are surviving, and their siblings are surviving than ever. So we want to take care of them, right? So we support them and their families when they're going through treatment and through research. But when it's ready to come to the University of Kentucky and be a student, how can we support them there? So that was the spirit of which we started that scholarship fund. And those monies are included in the total for DanceBlue. It falls under, our umbrella for supporting. So really excited about that.
That is excellent. Amberlee Isabella, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate the chance to catch up and talk to you about this and your insight on this. And I know that you're looking forward to celebrating 20 years and looking ahead towards 20 more with DanceBlue.
Thank you very much.
Alex Wade, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. A blessing to work with you guys, and excited to come back kind of full circle now with the DanceBlue projects.
Alex, just to go kind of back to the beginnings, tell us a little bit about what brought you to UK just as a student, like where you're from originally and kind of what your path was as a student, what you wanted to become when you came here.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Lexington, actually grew up on a farm out behind Keeneland, and always anticipated, essentially through high school, was wanting to go into medicine, but wanted to kind of go through the track of engineering. And essentially was exposed to several different programs at UK, and searched kind of throughout the state and outside of the state, and it was just a great fit. And was from Lexington and always grew up a UK fan, so that kind of felt very natural. And then when I found that the culture and the academic programs aligned with my future goals and that it could provide all of those kind of encompassed in one program, it made total sense, and went ahead and applied to UK and was able to start in 2010. And it was a really nice progression. And we had essentially done a lot of research projects in high school at UK. And so kind of being integrated into the campus even before being an undergrad student made that a very easy process as well to kind of get ingrained with what UK was about and what it had to offer in academics. And that's what led me there.
2010. I was
2010.
thinking
Pretty
about
wild.
that. Yeah. Yeah. I was just talking to somebody that I've been here since 2011. So 14 years. Yeah. It is crazy how fast time goes by. So as a student, you're involved in class stuff. You've got stuff with classes going on. And then, there's so many student organizations here on campus. Even then, I mean, we just keep adding student orgs. There's just so much opportunity for students based on what their interests are to be involved with stuff. What kind of led you down the path to get involved in DanceBlue, and kind of what piqued your interest about that?
Yeah, good question. And, kind of coming into UK, DanceBlue was really elevated in a lot of the orientation programs and otherwise. And I thought that the mission sounded amazing. And it seemed like very cohesive and very well organized. And being interested in medicine, it aligned with a lot of my passions there. But I am not gifted in the arts in any way. And so the fact that was kind of the leading thing is that, like, hey, you do this dance marathon for 24 hours. I was like, well, that sounds like a great program, but it doesn't sound like I would be good at it or that I could contribute that much to it. So it kind of went to the back of my mind after that orientation period. And then ended up joining a fraternity at UK, and we had several different people that I knew through that, and then other organizations that I was a part of, whether that be Habitat for Humanity or the engineering programs or otherwise. And they said that they were participating in it. And I was like, that's great. Again, it doesn't feel like I would be able to contribute that much, or my talents would align a lot with what they're doing there, but I love the mission and I'll come out and support you and come see it. And that, I think, it is kind of the origin story, I think, for many students is you're like, this seems great. I'll come support other people doing it. And then you see it, and then it just kind of washes over you. And it's just completely a part of what you want to do over the long term. And you see that it's so much more than that. It has so many layers of involvement and impact. And you could kind of see what the people that you cared about were doing and how passionate they were during that 24 hours. And you just found yourself there for hours without even realizing it, and just watching multiple line dances and ending up staying to the end. And then you're like, I have to be a part of this. I have to, in some way be contributing to this program and do everything I can for these kids and these families. And so I think a lot of people walk away from an experience like that and are just completely captured and moved. I think because it's so hard to describe in words. You hear about it, but then you experience it, and then that's it. Like, that's part of who you are and what you want to do throughout the rest of undergrad. And was by far the best organization I've ever been a part of, and never regretted spending my entire 4 years as a part of that program. So was really excited, and just such a blessing to have those people around me already participating in it, because I wouldn't have even explored it without them.
So how many years did you take part in DanceBlue, and kind of you shifted around to different roles? What were the roles that you took on as part of the team?
Yeah. So like I said, the first year I would participate in some of the like fundraising programs and otherwise through our fraternity and those other campus orgs, but I didn't do the marathon the first year. It was kind of that first marathon that I saw where I actually, like, after that started applying to be, fully a part of the organization. So just very volunteer roles scattered throughout the first freshman year, and then seeing the marathon. And then that kind of went into applying for the Family Relations Committee. And that's really the committee that I stayed with kind of throughout undergrad. And essentially that Family Relations Committee is committed to being in the hospital with the families. So you would go into the clinic, you would go to the inpatient ward and be able to be with the families while they're just seeing physicians for their outpatient treatments, while they were just getting lab results or images, or maybe being admitted for a treatment for an extended period of time. in the hospital, or maybe meeting with them to do, special events where the kids are immunosuppressed and they're not able to be around other kiddos and do a normal birthday party or do a normal trick or treat or Halloween. And so we would kind of set up these events that were in satellite places, both around campus and around the state, so that they could be a part of that. And so that's where kind of I was able to kind of find my space where I was interested in the medicine and kind of being a part of the health system. And, but I could also like really meet that core value of, hey, how do we serve these families well and meet them where they are and just love on these kids the best that we can. And doing that from an undergrad role and finding new and creative ways to do that. So that kind of morphed into different aspects within family relations. And so I did different roles in family relations itself throughout those 4 years. And then after those 4 years and kind of leading into med school afterwards, I participated in the Golden Matrix Fund Foundation, where essentially we worked with oncologists and other administrators within UK, the philanthropy program. Jennifer Minear, whose son Jarrett Minear was the inspiration for DanceBlue in the first place, and undergrads, and then also alumni that have graduated, and kind of collectively kind of talk about what the long-term trajectory of DanceBlue may look like. And then as a part of a team, work with the undergrad organization to, enact all of those long-term dreams as well and make sure that we're serving the families well. So kind of jumped around to a few different things there, but always wanted to make sure that I was able to contribute in some way to it.
As a student who is getting involved in this, and this was, kind of in the early years of DanceBlue. And so I think for, those first, 5-10 years, I think there was a thought of, does this have legs? How long are we going to be able to continue to do this? But that experience of being part of something where you're actually on a local level able to interact with the families and the kids, that this is directly going to help. And it's not some thing where you're raising money or you're doing some kind of work that is, off of campus in some national organization or some kind of thing where you don't see the end result of it. There's a personal connection there. What did that mean to you personally? Like, what was that experience like? I know that it helped inform and guide you as you went into, a medical career. So what was that whole interaction with families? Like, what did that mean to you?
Yes, great question. And I think that question really hits at the core of DanceBlue. And, I think from an outside perspective, just kind of seeing the money raised or otherwise, like really just captures only a fraction of what DanceBlue is. And I think exactly what your question kind of hits on is that it's those relationships. That is DanceBlue. And I think that's the power of DanceBlue. And I think the money is fantastic. And I think it provides a lot of opportunities for these kids and families and for the department for pediatric hematology, oncology as a whole. But it's really those relationships. And I'm just kind of looking at my desk right now. I have this framed quote on the side of the computer, and it says, it's from Jarrett Minear, who's the inspiration. He says, it makes me feel great that I can have an impact on these kids' lives. Maybe they'll grow up and remember me and say, hey, he helped me out a lot and I'd like to do something for someone else. And it's like, gosh, that is what you want to be a part of, as an undergrad student and really for the rest of your life. If you can just contribute to something else that's so much bigger than yourself and be a part of that. And it's like you said, you're not raising money for something that's like very vague and opaque and, thousands of miles away, and you never see these people. They are right there. They are right there. And especially like with the Family Relations Committee, I'm sitting there right there with these families while they're getting some really tough news, or they're getting the best news of their entire life, or you're right there in that marathon and they're coming up to you and saying, thank you so much for being here for my family. Or they get up there and speak during kind of the end hours of DanceBlue and say, hey, listen to the impact that DanceBlue has made on my family. And I can guarantee that the majority of what they say is like, hey, the money that you're raising is great, but that man or woman that came and sat with us when we got the worst news that we've ever had and has devastated our family, and they just wrapped their arms around us and were, there with us during such a devastating moment. That's what we needed, or just celebrating our daughter, our son in such a difficult time and difficult moment. That's what we needed then. Or, hey, I know that you all kind of heard us and listened to us and said, like, hey, we need some help with school because, our son or daughter is not in school all the time because they're getting treatments. And so DanceBlue can kind of swoop in, get a school intervention specialist, or they have really hard times putting food on the table because they're paying for a lot of things. And you can be a part of that. Like, you can listen to these families and see what they need, and can guarantee that it's not just one thing. Like, everyone comes from all of these different aspects. So you kind of get that multi-level impact because DanceBlue can be so dynamic and kind of shift with the needs of each individual patient and be with them. And you can kind of get this sense of like, hey, you can really serve humanity well by loving the human, like love that human so well. And then the rest of this dream will kind of come to fruition. And just being there and being with them, and maybe it's, everyone can kind of experience that in different ways. Maybe it's like the kiddos being out at a 5K that's raising money for DanceBlue, or maybe that's a mini marathon. I mean, just kind of talking about that. My son's about to go to elementary school, and his school has a DanceBlue mini marathon. I mean, and I was there at whatever year 6 or whatever at the start. And now I'm about to go to a mini marathon with my son, and he can be there with these patients that, maybe are the same patients that I worked with in the clinic. And gosh, that is just so powerful. And I think that's kind of what drives the program. Like, that's the special sauce in DanceBlue, is that, hey, it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from or what talents you have. Come as you are, be a part of these families' lives, to whatever capacity they need us to or want us to, or whatever they feel like is going to be most supportive in that situation. And let's use all of our talents to make that happen. And it's that relationship that drives it. And I think that's the most important thing. And then the money raised, I think, is a side byproduct of how strong that relationship is. And I think, setting that as a foundation first. And it's like, hey, we didn't make this up. And I don't think the undergrad students should get credit for it either. I think Jarrett Minear gets the credit for it. Like, he is the inspiration. He's the one that gave us that quote and realized he was going through cancer treatments, and he made Jarrett's Joy Cart, and he was right there serving the kids and giving that to them. And, I think that's the magic, is that you see him as the inspiration and you're like, what am I doing? What can I do? I'll do anything that I can. I'll do what I do best to serve these families. And that can look, and I think that's the amazing part, is it doesn't matter who you are, what talents you have, you're able to serve them. Just come with a willing heart and ready to love these families.
You talked about being involved as an undergrad, and then, moving on, went to medical school, and got involved with the Golden Matrix aspect of DanceBlue. As far as your experience with DanceBlue and being part of that, and then going through medical school, what kind of role did that play in the back of your head, and kind of how did it translate to what you now do in your professional life?
Yeah, I will say that is a very tough transition. And what I mean by that is, when you're a part of an organization that's so transformative, I feel like for me personally, and, I feel like one of the foundational pillars of kind of my identity and kind of what I do over the long term, like you said, in medicine, now in primary care, in that transition point was really tough because you're like, okay, well, I want to be a part of this for the rest of my life. And I think there's spaces to do that. And then you also don't want to be that old person in the room, like, hey, let's have other undergrads experience what you experience, have that be transformative to them, and expand this community so that we're stronger together, and so that you're not withholding that space from someone else that can also experience that too. And so just kind of walking that line was a really difficult process. And doing something like the Golden Matrix Foundation afterwards was a good kind of stepping stone, kind of not away from DanceBlue itself, but allowing other people to kind of fill that space and experience that too. And so that was a nice process. And then also, like you said, kind of being able to transform that into kind of how I practice medicine. It was really great, essentially during medical training as well too, because we did a few different programs that I was able to work with undergrad students on. Like we did a rapid prototyping program where we're trying to augment the academic experience for students that were going through treatments, and was able to essentially use like that medical background and engineering background. And we worked and brought like a 3D printer in the clinic, and we're able to work it on like 3D modeling and robotics and programming with the kiddos and do different things. So I was able to kind of do that during medical school, which was nice because I could work with undergrad students and kind of show them kind of how family relations kind of evolved while I was there, and then not always like be dominating that space either. I could kind of work through mentorship and otherwise and being a part of that. And then in Golden Matrix Fund. And then that was amazing because medical school, you spend so much time learning the material, but you get away a little bit from that relational aspect where you're with the patient. You went to medical school to serve patients, and then you have to spend so long to get the knowledge base to actually be able to contribute to their health that you end up kind of getting away from that a little bit until you get into clinical rotations in third and fourth year. So it was a nice way to kind of still be, contributing to those relationships and being a part of that space, but also kind of parlaying that into kind of the next stages of medical training and eventually graduating from that into being able to serve patients. But, I think after that, you were really able to utilize some of those skills too, where, just being able to, it was nice as an undergrad being in that medical space. You don't really know much about the oncology side, and you don't know much about the medications that they're getting, or, hey, something's going wrong, or their treatment is going in the wrong direction. How do you correct that? You don't know. Like, you don't have the training for that. You're just there to be with the families and kind of meet their needs. And I think that was amazing to kind of have that as my onset into healthcare, because it's like, really, that is the crux of the first step of the treatment plan, is like, let's see what the family needs first and be a part of that. And then we'll get to the medicine. We'll get to the other stuff. We'll talk about and I'm family medicine trained. I do primary care. So we kind of treat the entire patient, and they have all sorts, a whole wide range of complex comorbidities and issues that we're trying to work through. But, I think that led a lot to kind of how I approach that patient visit. It's, every single patient room that I come into, I say, hey, I know that we're going to talk about this, this, and this. I have a list of things based on our previous visits and what's been going on with your care. But what would you like to talk about today? What questions do you have? What concerns do you have about your care? And I think a lot of that stems from kind of jumping into the healthcare space and not knowing anything about medicine. Like, let's learn how to love and serve the patients first, and then the medicine will kind of bridge into that and integrate with that. And that way you can work together as a team. And sometimes it's not changing a medication. Sometimes it's just listening about how difficult a process is or what they're going through. And, a lot of times that plays into the type of treatment that you're going to do. And so kind of setting that up through DanceBlue, you kind of you're ingrained in this culture of service and, kind of dropping your needs and your priorities to kind of see what that patient needs or that family needs. And it was kind of nice transition into medicine of like, hey, let's start with that. We'll build in the medical training after that. And then you can kind of structure each patient visit based on the whole patient and not just like blood pressure or diabetes management or heart failure treatments or otherwise. Let's start with the person first and then treat as many aspects of that as you can to improve their quality of life and longevity. And so, I credit DanceBlue for kind of setting that up on the front end, and then, medical training afterwards, integrating into that to hopefully provide the best patient experience that I can. And I'm still learning as an attending, as a provider, about how to do that. And I think, that is a dynamic process that I'll never perfect, but I think DanceBlue set a good foundation for it.
What would you like to tell this year's DanceBlue student leaders and participants as they head into the event coming up?
Yeah, gosh. I mean, I just think that brings up so many emotions because I think about the first time that I saw DanceBlue, that I participated in DanceBlue, that I reached to different levels of leadership within DanceBlue, and experienced the marathon changed every time. It changed every single time. And I think the reason for that is it just kind of expands kind of the emotional footprint that DanceBlue has on you with all different aspects of how you're serving in that moment. So as a first-time participant, taking all of that in for the first time and just your feet hurting and your back hurting and you're being tired, but your best friends are there. And hey, there's kiddos that are coming up to you and dancing with you during the line dance and all of these different themes, and kind of being overwhelmed with the stimulation and people cheering behind you and the music and everything. Like all of that is just one aspect of it. And then you do some other aspect of leadership within DanceBlue, and you're running a few different things, but still being a part of that process. And then, even afterwards as alumni being there, and I still have pictures of, we had just had kiddos and they were attending DanceBlue Marathon for the first time. And it continues to expand, like I said, the emotional footprint it has on you as a person, just each time that you experience that. So I would just say, be open to that. Don't, and again, kind of speaking as the old guy that is coming back to this, but I would say just don't close yourself off to the previous experience that you had, because each time it will kind of expand the amount of inspiration that you have for this program, that you have for the kids and their families. And you find kind of different and new ways that to serve them and love them, and different ways that they inspire you as well. So it's a very kind of mutualistic relationship where they make you more than you previously were. And I think the impact that you hear from them indicates that, hey, each person that impacts and interacts with these kids and families also kind of expands what their experience is of both UK as a campus and what they think healthcare can provide for their families, and kind of the long-term outlook on what their child's diagnosis is. And so I think it just becomes more and more beautiful each time that you experience that. But I would just say be open to that being different and new and inspiring each time that you experience it too.
Fantastic. Is there anything else that I haven't asked about, or anything else you want to mention?
I don't think so. I mean, we're still kind of, like I said, kind of morphing and learning how to continue to be a part of this and continue to contribute, but also find a space for more and more people to experience that. And I would just say that I just look forward to that date every year. You kind of earmark that right when the news comes out about when it is, and kind of get excited to have a reunion with your school family. There's the friends that become family through this type of experience, and being a part of that each year is transformative in itself. And then bringing your own expanding family to be a part of that too, and hoping that they can kind of capture some of that. There's some beauty in that too. So just excited about this upcoming year and what our undergrad students have prepared for this marathon. And then I think, just kind of bringing a whole new set of students into an experience like this is something that is always beautiful to see as well.
Good deal. Alex Wade, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. We appreciate it.
No worries. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Behind the Blue. Behind the Blue is a joint production of the University of Kentucky and UK Healthcare. For more stories about UK and UK healthcare, visit uknow.uky.edu.